Welcome, good people, to this bittersweet occasion to celebrate the incredible life of our beloved Michael Seltzer. It is comforting for us to be among so many folks whose lives Michael touched in multiple and immeasurable ways. I'm Katherine Acey.
I'm Bill Goldstein.
And we're Team Michael and Ralph. I can't pinpoint the moment I met Michael. Seems like I've always known him, and eventually his sweetie Ralph. Memory is a beautiful thing, especially when you get help from your friends to remember things. I am pretty sure it was 1979 when friends Holly and Roz brought me to a party at Michael's at an apartment at the God Box with their mutual friend, Michael McCoy, also a dear friend of Michael's, who has also passed on. We were all very young, well, at least younger, and very political, fighting for social justice. Thus began a forever friendship. In 80-81, as fate would have it, we shared an office complex with multiple organizations and consultants. In fact, another one of those fellows, Rick Serpin, is here. A project I worked on was ending, and Michael had just the next job for me. Always the bridge builder and the connector. He encouraged me to apply and advocated for me to get the position at North Star, where he had been working in the People's Fund. Of course, Michael worked at the People's Fund. Where else would he have worked? Now, 4 decades plus, I am working in social justice. I worked in social justice feminist philanthropy. A word, as you can see, I had trouble pronouncing and spelling. Even tonight, in my remarks, it's spelled incorrectly. I was in it for the politics and because of Michael. In the 80s, he and I, with several others, co-founded the Funders for LGBTQ issues, a necessity given the shameful lack of funding for those communities, for our communities. Together, we served on that board. The organization thrives today, just one of Michael's many legacies. From North Star, I landed at Strader, Lesbian Foundation for Justice, where Michael continued to be a friend, a mentor, and a co-conspirator, always a co-conspirator. And he and Ralph were staunch members of Brothers for Sisters, an active support group. Although a brother, Michael on more than one occasion shared that he thought he was a lesbian. I told him, if it's okay with Ralph, it's okay with me. Michael was a die-hard feminist, though. Fast forward, there's so many stories in between those times. Recently, in early summer, Michael invited myself and Sarah Gould, another friend in the room, to be in a writer's support group. He was going to work on his memoirs. We had no idea what we were going to do, but if he wanted to do that and have a group, we were going to join it, and we did. We were scheduled to meet again in September. Michael sent me a birthday card this past June with a quote by Claudia Rankine. We are here. Why are we here, if not for each other? Why are we here, if not for each other? So Michael. It is how he lived his life, and it's how he saw the world. Some of you probably got the same card. He had a broad reach. Michael led brilliantly and modestly, but not shyly, for all of our communities. And for me and so many others, he was a guiding light, compassionate, curious, optimistic, fiercely loyal. I have a number of stories about that later. And most of all, He was irresistibly lovable. I miss him every day.
Thank you, Katherine. And so I'm Bill Goldstein, and I knew Michael. I first met Michael in 1994 when I was invited to join his and Ralph's and other people's house on Fire Island, and we lived together for the next 31 years, and eventually with our friends Richard Burns and Bobby Berg and my husband Blake West, the six of us entered into a poly-mortgagee relationship at 113 Ocean. Katherine referred to Michael as a connector. I always thought of Michael as a matchmaker, that he matched people with causes, donors with causes, volunteers with causes, community with each other, meeting people in community, and he also really loved to set people up with one another in the hope that they would be as happy as he was with Ralph. So today we're going to talk about Michael. A few of his friends and admirers will speak, and then we invite you also to share your memories at the reception with one another, and then, of course, to keep Michael and his mission alive by remembering him. I know that I knew him for about half my life, but I know that I will love and remember him for all my life.
Carolyn and I have the honor of speaking to you about Michael's early days for a simple reason. We've probably known Michael longer than just about anybody here. That's because starting in 1969, as young high school and college students, we worked with Michael in his role as the East Coast Regional Director of the American Freedom from Hunger Foundation. Sorry. Together, we had discovered a new-to-the-world fundraising technique, holding walks against hunger. These weren't what we know today as the 5K or 10K walks. We organized tens of thousands of people in our communities to hike 25 to 30 miles in a single day and seek sponsors who would pledge money for every mile they walked. In 400 large and small communities throughout the United States in the early 1970s, with Michael's help, walk organizers raised about $16 million. That would be $128 million in 2025 dollars. Many of the walk organizers from Boston, New York City, Erie, Pennsylvania, Storrs, Connecticut, Los Angeles, Milwaukee, Buffalo, Chapel Hill, Philadelphia, Chicago, Minneapolis, Washington, D.C., and others I probably missed have joined us here today, honoring our beloved Michael more than 50 years later.
From 1969 to 1972, Michael would travel up and down the East Coast in a Volvo he named Yevgeny to meet with walk organizers. At the age of 23, he had already seen poverty firsthand in Cameroon and in Appalachia and Hawaii. He told us his stories of the challenges poor people face on a daily basis. Michael made the mission real for us. He gave us advice on organizing walks, running educational programs, and evaluating programs to fund. Michael's enthusiasm was contagious. I remember him speaking in Brockton, Massachusetts, to a large auditorium of high school students. He got those students so excited about walking 25 miles that their cheers drowned him out. One could easily mistake that session for a pep rally before a football game. We believe that Michael's work at Freedom from Hunger and later at the People's Fund in Philadelphia served as a foundation for his growing expertise in fundraising and program evaluation, and it eventually led to his seminal fundraising handbook, Securing Your Organization's Future.
We remained dear friends with Michael throughout our lives. And I'm sorry, it hit me tonight that I've now known Michael I knew Michael more than 80% of my life. He had a knack for supporting you in whatever you were going through. When I was having a tough time deciding whether to take my legal skills to Wall Street in the mid-1980s, Michael was there to encourage me that we needed more good people making enough money to make substantial donations. And he and he helped me accept that being able to write the checks wasn't a bad thing. Michael always went the extra mile for anyone he could help, as you all know. One time I casually mentioned at dinner that my son was looking for a summer job and was considering a career in architecture. Literally by the next morning, Josh had an interview, and by that night he had a job as the first high school intern at a fabulous architecture firm. Thank you, Jean Gaff. People stay in Michael's life, and for good reason. And 16 years later, Michael would have celebrated that former high school student's wedding next August, and today Josh is here to celebrate Michael's life.
Michael was generous. In 1973, he gave me $1,000 so I could travel to Central America and visit programs we had funded. I thought it was a loan, but he told me pay it forward. It's long before most of us had heard that concept. Michael seemed to know what you needed even when you didn't. One day he sent me a brochure about a master's degree in management that he thought was a good fit for me. It was an aha moment for me. 3 years later, I had an MBA with a major in public and nonprofit management, and my career trajectory changed dramatically as a result. Michael could be challenging. I remember vividly Michael calling me to express how dismayed he was in the 1980s that nobody but the gay community was paying attention to how many people were dying of AIDS. He accused me personally of ignoring the crisis. He didn't abandon me, though, because of his anger. He wanted me to understand his profound grief and the need for action.
In 2018, at Michael's suggestion, we organized a 50-year reunion of the Freedom from Hunger crew in Washington, D.C. The phrase Michael used to describe himself at our reunion was 53 years of social justice. We will hear about many of those years tonight. One of my favorites, though, Michael also worked on sustainability long before the world ever realized it was a social justice issue. Whenever you stay in a hotel room anywhere in the world and see the signs asking you to reuse the towels, think of Michael, because Michael convinced hotel chains to not replace all those sheets of towels every night. Michael also had colorful phrases that stick with us. He implored us, if we didn't have time to do anything else, to become checkbook activists. He joked that when us old friends get together, we always start with an organ recital. How's your heart? How's your kidneys? Your lungs? And so forth. If only we could hear Michael do that recital one more time.
Laurie and I were each so happy when Michael and Ralph got together in 1982, 43 years ago. Michael and Ralph both deserve to find forever love. Ralph, you are Mike's Rock of Gibraltar. Your relationship brought him so much joy, and we believe he contributed so much more to the world because of your constant support and love. Thank you, Ralph, for asking us to share our memories.
Hi there. My name is Richard Burns, and Michael and I first met in September of 1980, 45 years ago, when we both served on the first National Board of Directors of Lambda Legal. Michael was friendly and kind and was a natural-born facilitator. That year, 1980, Lambda Legal had evolved from a local New York-based organization into a national one with its first fully national board of directors. Round about the time Roz Richter was executive director, and a year later, Michael became co-chair of that board of directors with the co-founder of SAGE, Nath Rockhill. By 1981, we had a collection of strong-willed, highly opinionated, argumentative activists from around the country. It was rambunctious, and sometimes it was even funny, and Michael skillfully moved us all along with grace and kind humor. As you've heard, Michael worked in social justice philanthropy, and he knew the importance and the power of moving early money. Philanthropy has never been particularly courageous, and Michael, right from the start, from his days leading the Bread and Roses People's Fund in Philadelphia, was out to change this. As you've heard, in 1982, he founded Funders for LGBTQ Issues with Katherine Acey, and they cajoled and agitated for foundations to provide the financial fuel that we all needed to fund our movement for LGBTQ equality and liberation. It wasn't easy, and Michael approached this work with his courtly smile. This work, quite naturally, led to Michael's next chapter of leadership. As the people in this room know all too well, at that same time, around 1982, the AIDS epidemic caught fire. And in 1985, Michael spent time in Paris with his friend Bob White, who was being treated for AIDS at the Pasteur Institute. Bob went back to San Francisco and subsequently died, and Michael became an AIDS activist. In 1987, he co-founded Funders Concerned About AIDS with Joyce Bove and served as its first executive director, that very same year that ACT UP was founded at the LGBT Community Center. He demanded, once again, with stately grace, that organized philanthropy step up to join the war against ignorance and hatred that we were all living in. Many foundations, once again, were slow and timid, and Michael demanded the best from them. Michael's activism continued when he later joined the board of the LGBT Center and quickly became its co-chair with Janet Weinberg. And he continued his gay and AIDS activism again and again. Even in 2012, he was an early organizer for the movement to create the New York City AIDS Memorial Park, right on 7th Avenue across from where Ralph and Michael lived. This was to honor and remember the more than 100,000 New Yorkers who had already died of AIDS at that time. Throughout his life, in his activism, Michael was modest, clear, and relentless, sometimes outraged, disarming with charm, and laser-focused. Earlier this year, we marched together in the No Kings marches with Ralph and lots of our Fire Island housemates. We shared houses, various houses in the Pines for 30 years, where I will say he could be quite spacey. I always remember when he called from the train on his way home to say that perhaps we should check and see if he had put the dirty laundry in the dryer with liquid soap and turned it on instead of in the washer. And indeed he had. More often, he would sit in a chair by the fireplace reading the Chronicle of Philanthropy and writing op-eds, essays, and very pointed letters to the editor. At his core, Michael was an activist, and at the heart of his happiness was Ralph. About that, he was always the most clear. Thank you.
I'm Susan Berresford. Michael came to the Ford Foundation where I worked when Ford didn't engage very deeply with the nonprofit sector or philanthropy. And I think in one sense, Ford's was one of the largest foundations and it sort of lived in its own world. But several of us thought that indifference was not the right way probably for the years ahead. And so we hired Michael to review the terrain and recommend a path forward. Ford had given Michael a grant to write his book, Securing Your Organization's Future, and it was widely seen as an indispensable guide to our sector, so he was a good bet for us to help us think freshly about the Ford Foundation's work in relation to the sector. And as it turned out, he brought a wider perspective to it than we expected. We had hired him simply to look at the U.S. part of the sector, but we're a global organization, and so he expanded it and looked at some of the global issues. He expanded our vision, and he kept stressing accountability and transparency for the field. So soon after that, Ford began a new program, and Michael was the leader of it. It supported people who were creating legal and financial systems to promote and protect nonprofit organizations. He was making grants of this kind. And Michael also was very skillful in helping us build partnerships, donor partnerships, between Ford and other donors on very sensitive and complicated topics like at the time affirmative action. And it was Michael's real skill in relationships and knowledge and building relationships between donors that made those really a great success. It was a real hallmark of his time at Ford. I've often wondered why Michael started, where and when and how he started an interest in the nonprofit sector. And I've heard a very sweet story from two different people that I don't know if it's true. Ralph will probably know if it's true or not, but I like it. It sort of helps me think about it. It starts when Michael was about 7 or 8 years old, and someone took him to the Bronx Zoo, probably his family. And he loved it. He had never seen so many animals in one place and in this beautiful setting and this gorgeous span of everything. The people were all so friendly and everything. And here's this 7 or 8 year old little boy looking at it. And so when they got ready to leave, he had a little change in his pocket, and he wanted to leave the money for the zoo and for the keep of the animals. But he couldn't find anybody to take the money. He went up to several people, the guards or the keepers or the guides and everything, and no one would take it. And so I wondered if this was sort of an early awareness about sort of organizational behavior that sort of didn't fit his generous spirit. But for sure, Michael knew from personal experience and from his study of history that successful reform movements addressing human suffering grow out of activism and nonprofit organizations that activist people need. These organizations offer a microphone for people with problems so they can insist on being heard and being dealt with. So we knew that from the history, and the HIV/AIDS activism surely made that point. But Michael also looked outside the US, and what he knew was that each country and culture had to find its own way to accept the activist impulse for human betterment. Some countries accept it pretty easily, some don't. He put money behind his efforts with patience, with determination and understanding. And the Ford program he created and supported with work of other people at the foundation was a bet for a better future and a boost for community activism and people-oriented problem solving. He was really good at thinking about things like that. He left a valuable and very distinctive legacy at the foundation. But Michael was also a very dear friend to me. And if you're near the top of an organization, it can be kind of lonely sometimes. And Michael didn't ever seem bothered by the distance. He always came and talked to me. And we gossiped, we laughed, we talked a lot. He loved gossiping and laughing. And he had a shy humor and a sharp wit and a very infectious smile. And over many years, he and I discovered that we loved books together, and sometimes the same kind of books. And after a while, we just stopped asking the other person if they wanted a book we were reading that we liked. We just send it to them, and he would send me books. And bingo, they always worked. It was really wonderful. And so he helped educate me this way and gave me a lot of pleasure. And I hope I did that for him in this. So like Ralph and all of us here today, I miss Michael. He left us much too soon, much, much too soon. But among the legacies he left is a wonderful one at the Ford Foundation with all our colleagues there. Thank you.
got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made, and people whose skin is a different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be carefully taught. Now there you are. Yes, there's that face that somehow I trust. It may embarrass you to hear me say it, but say it I must, say it I must. You have the cool, clear eyes of a seeker of wisdom and truth. Yet there's that upturned chin and the grin of impetuous youth. Oh, I believe in you. I believe in you. I hear the sound of good, solid judgment whenever you talk. Yet there's the bold, brave spring of the tiger that quickens your walk. Oh, I believe in you. I believe in you. And when my faith in my fellow man all but falls apart, I've but to feel your hand grasping mine, and I take heart. I take heart to see the cool, clear eyes of a seeker of wisdom and truth. Yet there's the slam, bang, tang, reminiscent of gin and vermouth. Oh, I believe in you. I believe in you.
Good evening. My name is Jenn Ching, and I have the privilege of leading North Star Fund.
And I'm Margie Fine, and I did lead North Star Fund before, and then I was the board member. I hadn't had enough. So, pleasure to, I'm still on the board now, working with Jenn.
Thank you so much for inviting me and Margie to share tonight our gratitude for the light that Michael brought into this world, and in particular, our little slice of it. Looking across this room, I know that Michael asked all of you for money for North Star Fund at some point or another. So, Michael was one of the first people to welcome me when I started at North Star Fund. And over the years, he was truly a generous and joyful colleague and friend, as he really has been to multiple generations of staff at the fund. I learned so much from him about the history and the roots of our shared work. He never took credit. He always lauded others, gave credit to others, and he was unfailingly compassionate, particularly about the many challenges we face when we pursue a life seeking and fighting for justice. Michael was a generation-defining champion for North Star Fund and for grassroots leaders all around New York. And indeed, many of the leaders through the years participated in his leadership programming and could always rely on him, as we've already heard, for connections, advice, support. He was so generous. Most of all, though, what remains for me is Michael's kindness and humor. He always asked me very thoughtful questions. He always gave me very thoughtful responses. He walked the world unendingly curious, and he was singularly committed to building a better future. To Michael, we all have a role, and we just have to be brave enough to live it. I am deeply grateful to have known him and to be doing my small part building on the work that he was part of envisioning and seeding. And to Ralph and to Michael's beloved community, thank you for sharing him with us.
Hello, beautiful friends and family and co-workers of Michael. It's really great to be in this room with all of you and to be doing this together. There are many things that Michael's had an impact on us all here, but I'd like to think I had a little impact on him. Note his amazing glasses. Note we both wore blue glasses before. I have now orange, but he still stuck to the blue, and he was gorgeous in them. Michael and I first met through our organizing and radical philanthropy, both of individuals and foundations, moving money to social justice, organizing, and getting funders to move more money. Still fighting this battle today, right? Those of you who are still trying to do this now. But Michael, we're going to carry it on. Michael began in Philadelphia in the People's Fund, which you've heard about before, which is now named Bread and Roses. And the director's here, right? Where are you? Yay, stand up. Yay. Look, so great people coming from that fund. That's great. Yay. It was a joy to have Michael's counsel, like Jenn just said, throughout my time with the North Star Fund, and then more recently when I was chair of the board. But he also worked with me and hollered at me and obsessed with me when I was at the UU Beach program at Shelter Rock. I think I was executive director for about a year, maybe a month, when he started to call me up and was really mad, like Carolyn said, that even though I was funding a lot of good things, I had not funded AIDS and I had not funded LGBTQ things. And you know what? He was right. And you know what? He was really good at doing this thing that a lot of people in philanthropy talk about, which is holding people accountable. Yeah, we were funding all these other good things, but we weren't funding that, and people were dying. And it almost makes me want to cry now, because I'm not talking about some funder out there who was being badly behaved to me. I didn't do it. And Michael kept at it and kept talking to me about it. I didn't do it maybe on the time schedule that he wanted, but we did hire somebody to work on LGBTQ rights, Bill Dempsey, and we did start funding a lot of LGBTQ work. And I have Michael to thank for the push, maybe the shove, to make that happen in that way, and I'm glad that I got to that place. So I am so grateful for him, and for so many, many reasons. Finally, I just want to say that I'm really sad that he's not here. I want to spit all the happy things and make us be smiling and make us feel good. But I'm sorry about that he's gone. And he's a boomer like me. And while people like to make a lot of fun of boomers, come on, Michael was the best of them all of being a boomer. So, Michael, presente. Thank you.
Michael Seltzer was a dear friend, a trusted colleague here at Baruch College for 15 years, and quite simply one of the most compassionate human beings I have ever met. There's a lot of things I can tell you about Michael tonight, but I want to share with you what I think is one of the most enduring parts of his legacy. About 10 years ago, in collaboration with the New York Community Trust and Baruch College Mark School of Public and International Affairs, Michael created the Leadership Fellows at the Trust program. This program was designed to prepare the next generation of nonprofit professionals with the skills and perspectives to lead with resilience, with inclusivity, and most of all, with heart and courage. I saw him do that week after week the past 10 years, and it was just incredibly amazing each time. In 3 weeks, this fellowship program will have graduated 616 alumni who can be found all across New York City. We've seen people grow into roles as executive directors, managers at all levels, change makers in their spheres of influence. And just last week, we found out one of the alumni of this program became a New York City council member. Michael always sought to elevate the voices of those in this fellowship program, those who had graduated, and in that spirit, I'd like to invite Lakimja Mattocks and then Maribel Martinez-Gunter to share with all of you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the space and time to share a little bit about Michael. My name is Lakimja Mattocks. I am now a Chief People and Culture Officer at an arts education nonprofit here in New York City. And I am a graduate of the spring 2018 class. Michael was a visionary. And he was one of those special visionaries that, although he held the vision, he also created space for people to become a part of that vision. Not only am I a graduate of the program, I am now also a mentor in that program. I am a faculty member of that program. And he created space to co-create together. So Michael was one of those leaders that not only helped the vision, but created space for other voices to be a part of that co-creation together, which made him so very special and unlike many leaders in the sector. He created that space. And so I have a call to action. I was actually hoping to go last, but it's fine. I'm going in this order. But I have a call to action for everyone in this room, for those who are leaders, for those who are in front of classrooms. Create space. Create space to learn together with those who you are leading alongside with. Create space for other voices to participate. And sorry, I'm like, whew. That's really what I want to say. Like, with Michael's legacy, create space for others to lead alongside you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maribel Martinez-Gunter. I'm the interim director of Bronx Legal Services. And I, too, was a member of one of the cohorts. I was in the fall 2018 cohort. Before I talk to you about how much Michael means to me, I'm going to bring you into that class for just a little bit. So our first reading for this class, and I'll say the date, it was October 19th, 2018, and that's going to be important in a minute. So our first reading was a 44-page article, quite long, and it was called Good to Great and the Social Sectors, Why Some Companies Make the Leap and Others Don't. And it talked about embracing the language of greatness. It talked about daring to have a big, hairy, audacious goal. And in this good to great framework, It taught us how the disciplined application of principles lead to creating outputs that define great spaces and places. And those inputs to greatness were about becoming a disciplined person. It talked about level 5 leadership. Keep that in mind in a minute. It talked about disciplined thoughts, confronting brutal facts, disciplined action, developing a culture of discipline, and building greatness that's meant to last. It said that we're doing the work of clock building, not time telling. So level 5 leaders are different from a level 4 leader, which is a pretty good level. That's an effective leader. But a level 5 leader is someone who is ambitious, first and foremost, for the cause, the movement, the mission, the work, not for themselves. And they have the will to do whatever it takes to make good on that ambition. Well, the article says that in the social sector, it's the compelling combination of personal humility and professional will that's a key factor in creating legitimacy and influence. This embodies Michael. Michael was, and his legacy is, a lasting illustration of a level 5 leader. Ambitious to chase down a mission, utilizing all of his talents, his wits, his passion, his bravery, his resources, his connections, leading by humility, love, and grit, embracing inclusivity so that we all felt welcome, empowering us to see ourselves, and sometimes even laugh at ourselves by sharing his own vulnerability, his soft voice, and his love for funny socks. He didn't know what kind of day I was having on October 19th. It was the 2-year anniversary of my mother's passing. And I had every reason to call out and not show up. But I came, and he stood by the entrance with a huge smile and a cup of coffee in hand, welcoming me to our first session together. Kindness matters. He saw me, he connected, and it wasn't too many Fridays after that our shared smile turned into greeting hugs. Now, I wasn't privy to all the labor of love that was involved in his relentless discipline of all those inputs of greatness that's defined by that article. But I have been privy, by observation and just the sheer good fortune of his mentorship and the generosity of his spirit, to see his outputs for greatness that are also in the article. So here are the outputs. Delivers superior performance, and that's defined by results and the achievement of a social mission, the delivery of that mission. Makes a distinctive impact. And that's when you make such a unique contribution to the communities that you touch. And you do the work with such unadulterated excellence that if you were to disappear, it would leave a hole that could not be easily filled by any other person on the planet. Achieves lasting endurance. That's when you can deliver exceptional results over a long period of time that's beyond any single leader or a great idea or a market cycle or any well-funded program. It's when you're hit with setbacks, you bounce back stronger than ever. Greatness is an inherently dynamic process, not an endpoint. That's what he taught me. So carrying and building upon Michael's legacy and confronting the brutal fact that there's a hole that can't be easily filled by any other person on the planet. And what do we plan to do about that? Michael poured into me. He poured into all of us. And now we are the stewards of the mission that remains, to constantly push ourselves and the people that we touch from good to great, to lead with humility and love and grit, just like Michael. If ever there was a time that needed leaders and teachers and mentors like Michael to rise up, it is now. The world is in pain and reeling, and we are on the verge of the most defining moment of our generation. When we find ourselves in spaces and places to interrupt suffering and elevate spirits to creativity and joy, say yes. When we have the opportunity to speak up when others are silenced, say yes. When we're at the crossroads of, if not you, then who? Take the path of the big, hairy, audacious goal. And when we have the fortune of locking arm in arm, take your place and stand. Martin Luther King says that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I would add to that that it doesn't bend by itself. It bends when people are willing to apply all of their strength together in one direction. That's what Michael did every day, and that's what we need to continue to do. Thank you, Michael. We will carry on from here.
I didn't think I'll be a hot mess tonight. I'm sorry. In 2008, I came to New York, and I met Michael. He was doing some work with my friend and sister, Abby Disney, and they introduced us. He embraced me. And that was it. How do you just love someone you know from nowhere and whispered, God sent me into your life to take care of you and whatever else you need. And in 2009, I would get pregnant and come to New York, and then get sick, and I couldn't go back home. And Abby and Jenny found a place for me up in the Bronx, and Michael would come. And as we walked the streets, he would give me candy. And I would say, Michael, why am I having candy? And he said, I read somewhere that pregnant women need candy. It's like, Michael, this is like my 5th child. I've never heard that before. Well, you just take it, you just take it. And then every doctor visit, we'll go to Harlem Hospital, and Michael will show up in suit and tie. And everyone from the doorway to the doctor's office knew that I was carrying his first child. One day he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, that she's carrying my first child. And a black woman sitting next to us turned, looked at me and said, someone just lied on someone. I suffered the worst form of insomnia, and Michael would leave Ralph and come up to spend weeks with me And every night, he would come in the room to make sure I would sleep. And I would pretend to be asleep just so he could go and go to sleep. Everyone in this room has spoken about Michael and philanthropy and his professional life. One of the things that I believe as an activist is that the personal is political. And there's no way you can live or preach activism without living it. And Michael embodied that. His advocacy and activism was lived in everything that he did. From Bakusam to Liberia, he wasn't just concerned about me, he was concerned about the work that I was involved with. He wanted to know how funding was being gathered. He wanted to know how the students were faring. He wanted to be present. And he came to Monrovia once and danced with everyone, asked questions. He was curious. Michael was not fake. He didn't see color. He was human. And he embodied what all of us are looking for right now, the essence of our collective humanity. He hated discrimination. When the baby was born, we went to get her birth certificate. And the person we went to was so disrespectful. And he said to her, "You all should have chairs for mothers, especially those who have had cesarean." And she was like, "Well, you can go and find," like really disrespectful. And he said to me, "I apologize, Leymah. Stand there and wait for me." And then in 5 minutes, this same very disrespectful person came and said, "Can you come in my office and have a seat?" And I said, "No, Michael said to stand here and wait for him." But in 2 minutes, he was down and said, "Let's go." And I was like, "Michael, what did you do?" He said, "Oh, we know people, but we pretend." When the birth certificate came, I was telling Ralph recently, you need to check in the house. There were 2 copies, one sent to Michael, one sent to me. His love for Africa was unmatched. My kids are here, or some of my kids are here with me tonight. And Michael's first child, Nekopi, is here. There was no college application that he didn't get involved with. There was nothing that they were looking for jobs or CV that he didn't ask to do. He was Uncle Michael, and they went to the Bronx Zoo as many times. I resisted because I don't know how to do touristic stuff. They went to the ice cream museum. He introduced me to Riverside Church, and there were many moments where he would come and sit in the pews with me. I can go on and on. My father, who was a typical African, and my mother really didn't understand the concept of LGBTQ. One time they got stuck in New York. Their flight was late. I had to go. And I called Michael. He said, "We'll take them home." But I tell you that one act of taking my parents home changed whatever mindset they had about LGBTQ people. And up to my dad's death, he had Michael on speed dial. I would wonder, what would the two be talking about? And he would say, "Oh, I just called Michael today and we had a long conversation." What did they talk about? Michael loved me. And I would say, after Ralph, I was number one. If he was here, I could hear him say, "No, Leymah. After Ralph is Nekopi, and then you." I had a dream, and I saw Michael dressed in blue, sitting in a suit. And I walked over to him and said, "Michael, why did you leave?" And he said it was time for me. And when I told Ralph the dream, he said, "But we weren't ready." And I can say to you, Ralph, I too, I'm not ready. From 2008 to 2025 may seem a short time in comparison with some of those who met Michael in the 1980s. But there is a writing that I saw somewhere that says the heart doesn't count the years or the tears, but it's the memory of love that counts. And I speak for my children and I, that we will forever remember Uncle Michael, Daddy Michael, and all of the names that we called him. May his soul rest in peace, and may life perpetual shine on him. Ralph, we got you. There's one last college application that Michael didn't get to write, and that was Nekopi's application. And I hear you stepped in and said, "Nekopi, let me see that application." Nekopi, you should stand so people see you. She's bawling right now. But every time I remind her that Uncle Ralph is not Uncle Michael. Ralph is straight, and Michael could spoil you. Thank you, Ralph, for sharing Michael with my family and I. Thank you for allowing him to come and sleep over. Thank you for allowing me to be his first baby mama. God bless you all.
For those of you who are looking at your programs and seeming puzzled, you're not having a senior moment. I'm not Ralph Tachuk. But Ralph, I have the honor of actually reading some of Ralph's closing remarks, and it really is an honor. I'm also honored to be among I think the first cohort of friends of Michael and Ralph in the 21st century. We met in April, year 2000, and Michael would always, with just the special, sometimes peculiar sense of exuberance, would always, when introducing some of us to some other new friends, would say, "We met in Havana," which indeed we did when we had invited Michael down to Havana to do a fundraising workshop for the Library of Casa de las Americas in Cuba. Indeed, Michael never shied away from a heavy lift. These are Ralph's words from his heart. Michael's vision was of a world where everyone had the opportunities and resources to achieve their full potential. I think that this vision led him to becoming a lifelong activist and agent of change. As the various speakers today have outlined, his activism was broad, it looked different at different times, and led him in a number of different directions over the years. But it was a consistent thread throughout his life. If a need was unmet, Michael would create an organization to address it. And as a result, he leaves a tremendous legacy of innovative thinking and accomplishments, as we've heard this afternoon. Aside from being irresistibly lovable, as Katherine Acey has said at some point, Michael was relentlessly thoughtful and seemed incapable of leaving any situation at least a little bit better than he found it. Indeed, the man of a million mitzvahs or good deeds, we are all a little bit better off for having been touched by him. I, Ralph, would like to thank everyone for this tremendous show of love for Michael. He was so very deserving of it. The Brooks events team, led by Diana Lassoff, is clearly a bunch of pros. Thank you. And I'd like to thank Professor Don Waisanen, Dean Sherry Ryan, and Provost Linda Essig here at Baruch for agreeing to host and boosting this event. And finally, Ralph is forever grateful for the unstinting support of all of Michael's and Ralph's dear, loving friends. We, Michael and Ralph, have been richly blessed in the friendship department. Thank you so much, Ralph.
Let's all take a moment to breathe, take in everything that's been said and shared. Presente, Michael. I want to thank, again, all the speakers, Baruch, and especially you, Ralph, for bringing us all together. This is a special, special evening to be remembered. Keep telling those stories and those anecdotes. That's how we keep Michael's memory and everything he stood for alive.
So now we can go to the reception, and as we go, we will hear Michael's favorite hymn, This Little Light of Mine, sung by one of his idols, Fannie Lou Hamer. Thank you all, and see you in the other room.
And we want to give a special, special thank you to Trevor for that beautiful voice and those meaningful songs.